Hey guys, Gypsy Jeep here, back at it again with another How to Road Life series. I'm in beautiful Daniel Boone National Forest. It is extremely hot here in Kentucky. You're having a heat wave. Today's video is going to be about sleeping arrangements while you're on the road. And you pretty much got two primary ways to sleep on the road, and that's either inside your vehicle or outside your vehicle. Now, I think it's very important to say that when you're living that kind of lifestyle a lot, like you're not just a weekend warrior kind of person, you're the kind of person that's going out and doing this very often like I am, it is extremely important to be able to sleep inside your vehicle. Reasons being is for safety and also stealth camping. Sometimes you're in areas where you don't feel safe, right? Like there's a high alert for bears like there is here, even though I'm not sleeping in my Jeep. But there is a high alert for bears out here and other animals. Sometimes you're in an area where there's people that you're kind of feel a little weird about, you know, so you want to sleep inside your vehicle because that's extremely safe. It gives a good barrier between you and whatever you feel unsafe with. It also can help out sometimes with the elements, you know, of big storms coming in, cold weather, things like that. And then as far as the stealth aspect goes, you know, sometimes you're on a road trip, you're heading somewhere and you got to stop and, you know, stay the night somewhere that's kind of like maybe a little bit more suburban or urban or whatever. And you don't want to, you know, set up a tent outside your vehicle because, you know, that screams, hey, I'm sleeping here in this parking lot at like a Walmart or something, right? And that just screams, you know, like, come mess with me, right? Cops get involved, all kinds of crap like that. So again, it's very important to be able to sleep inside your vehicle. So with that being said, let's talk about some of the options you have with sleeping inside your vehicle. All right, so first up on the list, guys, is an air mattress. Air mattresses are extremely easy to set up inside your vehicle. You can do it, you know, with a Jeep, you can do it Toyota 4Runner, van, whatever style vehicle that you have. You know, it's fairly easy to just pop an air mattress in there and stuff, right? This is great for people who are like weekend warriors, right? Who need to sleep inside a vehicle for whatever reason. They just feel safer, stealth camping wise, something like that, right? They're extremely easy to just pop in there, you know, set up. It's nice if you have like a little air pump or something like that, or some way to power the automatic air pump that comes on some of the air mattresses that are out there. And even for Jeeps, like my JK here, they actually make a air mattress that is like designed specifically to fit perfectly in the back of the vehicle. And I think there's they may or may not have that for other types of vehicles. I'm not really sure, but that's a really, you know, basic, easy option on how to sleep inside your vehicle. Another option, and I've seen people do this on YouTube, is a cot. There's a YouTuber by the name of Jake, and his channel name is cleverly named I Am Jake. He's actually one of the guys that kind of inspired me to kind of live this lifestyle. He's got a great channel, go check it out. Essentially, he had an old YJ that he had converted to look like a CJ7. And he took out all the seats except for the driver's seat, and he ran a cot in it, and that's how he would sleep. And, you know, cots are great, honestly, for that kind of situation because you can easily store stuff underneath it, boxes, you know, bags and what have you, so you can store your gear, you know, because that's one of the downsides of the air mattress. Storing your gear can kind of get a little annoying, you know. It's not a big deal if you're a weekend warrior, you know, and you don't need as much space, but if you're living this kind of lifestyle all the time like I am, you know, and air mattress is kind of iffy, you know. So a cot, yeah, the cot is an extremely good option for doing it. It's just the matter of finding space and finding like the right size cot and dimensions and comfortability for you, right? The next method, now this is kind of a hit or miss method depending on your vehicle. And I've seen people do this. It's not super popular, but is actually running a hammock inside your vehicle. I think this works well with like vans, like a Mercedes Sprinter van, where you have like a long length vehicle to actually be able to put a hammock up, you know. I don't think I could do that in my Jeep effectively. I just don't think it would work really well. You know, if there's someone out there who has done it in a Jeep, let me know. I'd love to hear about how you managed to rig that whole thing up or whatever. But a hammock is, really comfortable to sleep in. And honestly, I really enjoy sleeping in hammocks. So if you can figure out how to put a hammock inside your vehicle, all the power to you, right? And then the last option, and probably, in my opinion, the best preferred option, especially if you're doing this all the time, is to actually have a dedicated bed platform, kind of like I have here in the Jeep. Okay, so as you guys can see, I have essentially a custom-made bed here. More or less, it's just a couple mattress toppers. I'm sorry, not mattress toppers. A couple mattress pads, like for camping, and then a mattress topper in between the two of them. And it's sectioned because when I have it closed up, I have to pull this out. This one has more mattress pads in it to give it some more comfortability, and then I have one underneath, which works nice because sometimes I'll pull this thing out to actually use, like, say, a tent, right? So, but I keep it in there for extra comfortability, just on a normal basis. As far as the platform goes, I mean, you guys can obviously see I have like a drawer system back here. And the bed essentially just sits on this side of the vehicle. And I crawl in through the back passenger side door. Now, my system is extremely tight quarters. I'm not claustrophobic, so it doesn't really bother me. But for some people, this probably would not be a very good option. If you are claustrophobic, some people would probably want to drop it down several inches versus what I have, or some people would even go as far as to get a roof top that goes up higher than the just standard Jeep style one. But not everybody has a Jeep, right? So bed platforms, in my opinion, will work extremely well inside a van or Toyota 4Runner, any of those kinds of vehicles. It's just all a matter of figuring out all the dimensions and figuring out how to do some carpentry, woodwork type stuff. And if you don't want to do the carpentry, woodwork stuff yourself, you can actually pay, a carpenter or somebody who actually does stuff like this for a living. There are companies who literally just do this kind of conversions for your vehicle. You can pay them to make, the ultimate built-out vehicle, but this is the most expensive option, so it's not for everybody. But in my opinion, if you're doing this all the time, I would just go with this right off the bat. Trust me. All right, so that pretty much covers most everything as far as sleeping inside a vehicle goes, but there is one important thing that I cannot stress enough to you guys, and that is parking on any type of slope surface and how to do it. Because it's not like extremely common knowledge to a lot of people, and I was doing this whenever I began, doing this kind of lifestyle, and it was a huge mistake. So when you're parking on a slope surface, right, so you got a hill, right, you want to make sure that however you lay inside your vehicle, right, so like say my head lays towards the front of the vehicle, meaning that I should park the front of my Jeep here so that my head is higher than my feet are, right? Now, if I was to park the vehicle down, obviously my feet would be higher than my head is. Why is that a problem, right? So gravity will actually begin to slowly take the blood from my lower body and start having it pull up inside my head and inside my chest and just my torso in general, which will make it way more, and it'll give you a terrible night's sleep. I mean, absolutely god awful. You'll wake up with a headache. You'll just be really sore. It absolutely sucks. It took me some time to kind of figure that out, and I actually did a little bit of research online about that. So you definitely want to make sure that if you're parking on a hill, that you're parking with your head up the hill versus down the hill. And even on like lightly sloped surfaces, it makes a big deal. But if you can level your vehicle out, that's even better of a system, right? A lot of people take like traction boards, for off-roading, and will put those underneath their tires to help level out the vehicle if they're on like a super uneven terrain or something, right? So Can't stress that enough. Just make sure head up the hill. Okay. Now we're going to move on to options of sleeping outside your vehicle. I'll tell you what, guys, that daggum heat, it is killing me out here. All right, so sleeping outside your vehicle, why would you want to do that if you can sleep inside your vehicle, right? Well, on a day like today, where it's just blistering hot for no reason at all, right? This is where I'd like to rather sleep in a hammock because it's way cooler, feels way better. Even sleeping in a tent is going to feel way better than sleeping inside the vehicle. Now, the only time sleeping inside the vehicle will feel better is if you can run the vehicle with the AC on. I actually physically have to get outside the vehicle, run around to the driver's side, push in the clutch and start the vehicle because mine's manual. So that's just not a really good option for me. So when it's really hot like this, I like to find really nice cool spots in the shade and sleep out here. So that's why sleeping outside the vehicle is nice, but also it just kind of gets you in tune with nature, you know. You just feel a little bit more exposed to the elements and just kind of feel a little bit more outdoorsy, you know, because that's part of this whole lifestyle is really just getting out and being outdoorsy for the most part, right? So what are some options to sleep outside of your vehicle? We got a hammock, like I mentioned earlier, except instead of inside the vehicle, we're outside the vehicle this time, right? A tent, I think I mentioned that earlier too. A cot, which I also mentioned earlier, you can use inside a tent, or if you have a vehicle side awning like I have, you can also sleep underneath that with the cot, right? So it's pretty nice. With hammock camping, there's a lot of different parts that you kind of want to have, but maybe not want to have. Actually, it'd just be easier to show you guys. All right, so here's my current setup with my hammock, okay? So when you guys are choosing a hammock, if you guys decide to get one, it is very important to get one with a built-in bug net. Now, you can get one without a built-in bug net, but in my personal opinion, those are just a bigger pain in the butt than what they're worth. Okay. Tree straps, right? In my opinion, it's best to get ones that have loops almost going the entire way up. That way you have better options for mounting this thing. Well, mounting it, strapping it, I guess would be the technical term, right? Because if you don't have as many loops, right, because this one's got a whole bunch of loops on it. If you don't have as many loops, you're going to have to wrap it around the tree sometimes if it's a smaller tree. It's just a pain in the butt, right? Having a fly for your hammock is a big must. It actually rained last night when I was sleeping in it. You can probably see still covered in water. So having a good old fly, which is more or less just a tarp, right, guys? I mean, you can use this tarp for all kind of different options, right? Having a tarp is a must-have whenever you are doing any type of hammock camping. Here's another great little nifty thing, and it is a blow-up pillow for your hammock, kind of designed to fit in there pretty well. And then it's also got a lanyard, so to speak, so that if it does fall out, that you can easily just, you know, reach over and get it. Drawing a blank on something. Oh, so, you know, on days like that today where it's really hot, hammock camping's good because it's cool. Now, say you want to hammock camp, but it's not that warm out, like it's actually kind of cold. You can winter hammock camp, right? They make this thing, it's more or less just a blanket, and they call it an underquilt, and it just goes right on the bottom side of the hammock, and what it does is it traps all the warm air coming, or, you know, your body warmth, essentially. It traps an air pocket underneath you, keeping you warm so you don't get what they call cold butt syndrome, or CBS. You don't want CBS. It sucks, right? And the cool thing about hammock camping in the colder months is you don't really need to run that bug net that much, right? So you can get away with just running it as a normal hammock. And another cool thing that you can also get is a top quilt, right? So it's just like the underquilt, except it goes on top, right? And you can more or less just create a like cocoon kind of shape and keep yourself really warm inside that hammock. Totally one of my favorite options for like camping outside of the vehicle. I do it more often than I even pull out the tent because it really is just that enjoyable. All right, so I think I covered all my bases when it comes to hammocks. Hopefully you learned something about that. So with tents, like I said earlier, a 2-person backpacking tent that's kind of lightweight is really my personal go-to. But you know, if you're someone who's not worried about weight or room, you could easily get one of those big old popped up tents or something a little bit more roomy, whatever, you know, floats your boat in regards to that. I have it's the Nightcat 2-person backpacking tent. I think it's probably the best budget backpacking tent on the market, in my opinion, just because of the way it's designed. I actually plan on maybe doing a review video of it because I really haven't seen that many daggone bugs about that tent, because I really think that for the price you pay for this thing, it is just awesome. Absolutely awesome. Some things that you might want to keep in mind with tents that I keep in mind is kind of just the same thing as with hammocks and stuff like that. Sometimes I don't really want to be bothered by people, so I don't really want something that kind of stands out as much. So I typically go with darker color tents versus lighter color tents. I've also noticed too that for some reason with lighter colored tents, like I had a tent that was essentially just a couple shades off from white. It was considered a gray. It was basically white. But the bugs flocked to that thing like, I mean, insane, guys. I mean, like crazy. Once I got a darker color tent, they just left me alone. Weren't as much there, right? Another awesome thing to consider doing with your hammock, tent, anything that you're sleeping with outside is getting permethrin. You can pick this up at Walmart in the camping section, and it's essentially an insecticide that is safe for us to like have. Like I could put it on my clothes, you can put it on a tarp, you can put it on the hammock, on the tent, whatever. It's an insecticide, so but it only affects insects. Now I've heard it's pretty bad for cats. They do make it to be dog friendly though. They even make one you can actually put on dogs, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I want to say I saw that at Walmart too, but you know, again, don't quote me on that. I only got the one that goes on clothing or, you know, camping equipment. But essentially, insects will just crawl up on it and die, which is awesome because it keeps you pretty bug free. No matter what option you're using to, you know, sleep in, right? I think that pretty much covers it when it comes to tent camping, except for I would like to mention that, like, when it comes to tent camping in the wintertime, kind of like I mentioned with the hammock, gets a little bit different. Now, personally, I like to hot tent camp, and a hot tent essentially it's just a tent that you can put a wood burning stove in and keep the tent warm that way. But they also make, you know, like 2-person backpacking tents that are 4-season or 4th season tents. But you actually have to go and buy one. A little bit more on the expensive side, in my opinion. I really like the hot tenting aspect. I think it's a lot more fun and enjoyable. And I do plan on in the future maybe making a video about that. I'm gonna actually wait till it gets colder out instead of like blaring 90-degree weather like it is right now before I decide to do something like that. Now, say you're not a fancy schmancy guy like me and have a roof side or car side awning. But you do want to sleep on a cot underneath something. That's when a real nice tarp comes in handy. You can easily mount a tarp with tarp poles on the side of your vehicle or do it next to some trees or whatever. So having a good tarp, I have tarps. I have like 3 tarps for all various different types of, you know, scenarios. Tarps work pretty well. And if you do have a car side awning, you can use those tarps to actually make like walls off the side of your tarp or off your awning. So that's kind of cool too. You can essentially make like a little tent kind of deal with the tarp. So that's another reason I really advocate for having a tarp when you're on the road. It also works quite well because, you know, when you use a tent, you should really have like a ground sheet. Tarps are perfect for that, you know. If you don't want to spend a lot on a tarp, you know, just go to the Harbor Freight, Tractor Supply Co., get like one of those cheap tarps, and you should be perfectly fine. But that is a really good option as well for finding a way to sleep outside. And they do make like bug nets that you can use in conjunction with like a tarp type scenario like that will fit over like say a cot, for instance, right? So I don't know exactly where you could find something like that. Probably Amazon, eBay, something like that. But it is definitely an option as well. Well, I officially got so hot that I decided to jump inside the water, or at least get my feet wet so I can stay cool. So last thing I want to talk about is the last option for sleeping outside your vehicle, which is a rooftop tent. I know a lot of people like them, and it's a controversial opinion, but I am not a huge fan of them. I find that they are very unsafe, heavy, expensive. They take up a lot of space. You really have to make sure your vehicle's level to sleep in them comfortably. And I think they really stand out too. Like nothing, you know, says, hey, I'm sleeping inside my vehicle or sleeping around my vehicle or something like that, more so than having this big old tent on top of your vehicle, right? They look cool and the concept's cool. I just don't think in practice that there's as many pros as there are cons, right? So why do I think they're unsafe? If there's an emergency where you need to get out of that thing fast, you know, you got to unzip it and pretty much throw yourself off your vehicle, you know, if there's an emergency where you need to get down like that, right? So, you know, you're talking about getting injured, right? Not to mention just, you know, what if it's been raining out, you get on that ladder, slip and fall and hurt yourself, right? You know, I just think they're kind of unsafe in that aspect, right? They're extremely heavy, right? So the heavy aspect, I mean, and this is what makes them expensive too, because not only do you have to pay for the rooftop tent that's, you know, anywhere from $1,000 to like $4,000, right? You have to buy a roof rack that can support the amount of weight that the rooftop tent is, right? Because not only do you have to factor in the weight of the rooftop tent, you also have to factor in your weight. If you're going with somebody, their weight. If you want to have like animals like a dog or children or something like that, you have to consider all that weight that you're putting on top of your vehicle, right? So you have to spend big money on a really good roof rack just to be able to support the amount of weight that you're probably going to be putting up there. So that's another reason I'm like, rooftop tents just really not as many cons as there are pros, right? The pro is, I mean, you can stay outside and really enjoy with nature and get a really nice view, but you know, I can get just as nice a view sleeping in a hammock or in a tent, you know what I mean? They take up a lot of space, so you guys have seen my Jeep and how much stuff I have on top of my Jeep. I have tons of storage up there. Excuse me, up there, right? I have a inflatable kayak, I have my extra tent, clothes, some tools, things of that nature. I would have to pretty much sacrifice all of that storage space just to be able to put a rooftop tent up there, and that's just something I'm not willing to do, especially for how much I have to pay to even have a rooftop tent, right? So I really don't like that aspect too, because if I was gonna invest in a rooftop tent, I would have to pull everything off the top of the Jeep and put it inside the Jeep, which would also eliminate my ability to sleep inside the Jeep, which again, I told you guys earlier in this video, like, it is extremely important that you are able to sleep inside your vehicle. Like, I mean, it's probably like if you had to choose between sleeping inside your vehicle and outside your vehicle, always choose inside your vehicle, right? Prioritize that versus prioritizing sleeping outside the vehicle, right? Another issue I think it really stands out. So if, like I said, I would have to sacrifice sleeping inside the Jeep and have to sleep only exclusively pretty much inside that rooftop tent, Lord have mercy. And say I was, you know, doing that whole overnight, you know, road trip and I had to stop by a Walmart and sleep. Like, if I set up the rooftop tent, there's nothing that screams, hey, I'm sleeping right here in my vehicle or on top of my vehicle in this parking lot. Like, people are going to come mess with you. Cops might get called, you know. Just, it seems like more of a headache than what it's worth, you know. I guess if you live in an area where you can be out in the boondocks constantly, maybe I see the, you know, allure to it, but yeah. You know, plus I talked about leveling your vehicle to make sure that your head is at the proper, you know, like on the top of the hill versus, you know, being towards the bottom of the hill. And I feel like you would even have to make sure that your car's leveled out even more so with a rooftop tent versus just not having a rooftop tent. I really just don't think that they are worth as much as you would pay. I would advise people to get away from that because it makes overlanding look extremely expensive, which it doesn't need to be. I don't utilize one, and I overlay them perfectly fine and have tons of fun overlanding, right? So I think it's more advisable from my perspective to just not even invest in a rooftop tent at all. Just invest in sleeping inside your vehicle and outside your vehicle in the cheapest way that you can. And that's my motto on that. But that pretty much wraps it up for this video, guys. I appreciate you guys coming and watching my video, and hopefully you learned something. If there's any question you guys have, just, you know, leave a comment. Let me know. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, you know, criticism's good. So give me some criticism, guys. Let me know if the way I talk's funny, or if you didn't like the backdrops or what. You know, just let me know. I appreciate it, guys. You have a good one.